races instead of 2, which is what has happened at every other round. But we are here, and the championship reaching its conclusion with 4 for the title. Lando Norris, Max de Ferny, Dorian Boccolacci, former of Formula 3, of course, and Jihan Daruvala as well. They're all in contention for the 2016 Formula Renault 2-litre Northern European Cup Championship title. However, Lando Norris last weekend at Spa won the Formula Renault 2-litre Euro Cup title, which therefore must mean that he should come here brimming with confidence, and having Bosch the car on pole position for Joseph Kaufmann Racing, he must be in a very, very good position. Alongside me, former single-seater star and now top GT racer, is Alex Toril. And, you know, when you've won a competition like that and you come into another championship that you're racing in as well, it really must help your confidence, doesn't it?
Yeah, good afternoon, Dave. Of course, it's a really, really big point. So as soon as you win a championship and you come to a next race, you are full of confidence. You know you did a good job, and even a championship like the Euro Cup, which is a really important championship, you just know you did your homework right, and then you come to the next one and you try to keep the flow.
These cars are Tatius chassis, single-seaters then, and the Renault Sport engine, producing some 210 brake horsepower. They are a phenomenal single-seater racing car, and it's a big grid of cars. And Lando Norris goes into this on 265 points. Max de Ferny is on 217, with Dorian Boccolacci perhaps with an outside chance on 203, and that's also the case for Jan Daruvala as well, also on 203 points. However, Lando Norris, P1 on the grid, whereas Max de Ferny is down there, P5. And just as we mentioned Max, we see his car there. So driving for the RS GP team, he's got work to do, hasn't he? Because, you know, he needs to be ahead of Lando Norris, come what may. Lando Norris pole position. You know, he's given himself a big task over the 3 races here at Hockenheim, I would suggest. We've had mixed weather conditions here at Hockenheim. All the cars, as you can see, are on the slick weather tyres, as Alex Gilden, the Mark Burdett Motorsport racer, who goes from P6. He's currently P7 in the points championship. Yeah, the weather conditions have been just a little bit changeable here, and we have had some rain, but the track is pretty dry now, unless, Alex Toril, you went offline, I suppose. And if you went offline or went off onto the Astro or the grass, then it would still be very, very damp.
Yes, you are completely right, Dave. It's been today a really strange day with some wet and dry moments. And now I think the track is completely dry, as we see also every driver with slick tires on his cars. But as soon as you drive off the track, as soon as we go into those run-off areas with AstroTurf, and with this, for people, this AstroTurf is like the grass, this artificial grass.
Yes.
This is completely damp and wet, so you have to be really cautious not to dry off, because you have a lot of chances of spinning and or losing control of the car.
So we look there at the car of Martagnan, who drives car number 30. There's Kornev, Alexei, who drives for the JT Motorsport team, who is down there on grid. And there, as we go into the cockpit of the car, you can see him there going from P9. Dorian Boccolacci, you've raced against Dorian Boccolacci once or twice, haven't you, in your Formula 3 career, or was Dorian in the year after you?
Yeah, it just came as I was racing 2014. I think he was racing last year in Formula 3. So
beg your pardon.
Yeah, no worries.
So Dorian Boccolacci then on the grid. And there, a little bit of camera art from our cameraman down there is now this young man, Robert Schwartzman, who was in the ADAC Formula 4 series last year, ran a dual campaign in the German and the Italian series. An incredible young talent, in my opinion. Schwartzman is P5 in the championship, and he is tiny. I mean, 4 foot nothing. When he's been on the podium in the past, and he may well be on the podium today, it's absolutely extraordinary. It's like you need another step so that he becomes the same, you know, really, really tiny fella. Extraordinarily talented, in my opinion, Robert Schwartzman. He'll be one to watch, certainly, from his grid position, keeping your eyes out for car number 3. As we continue to go through the grid, as Falcaro there, another one of the RSGP drivers, Julian. He's going from P13 on the grid. And behind him is Gabriel Aubry, another Tech 1 racing driver, French driver. And there is Aubry's car then, driving for Tech 1 Racing. That purple and white livery across his car. So the competition this year has taken us to Monza, Silverstone, Budapest, Spa, Francorchamps, also Assen, Nürburgring, and now the grand finale of the 3 races here at Hockenheim as the cars are fired up, ready to go. It's a very, very short race, just 25 minutes of this Hockenheim circuit, which, something that you said to me off the air earlier on, is the fact that this Hockenheim circuit really is designed and it promotes good overtaking. There are places where you can do that, aren't there?
Yeah, it's a good racetrack, especially down to the hairpin. Corner 4, you can have a really good chance to overtake and pass cars. So if you are back in the grid, it's a circuit where you can really make up some positions, like we've seen in other categories already today.
Yes, there's been lots of racing here already today, lots of rubber down there on the track. These cars all race on the Michelin tyres, and they are really a phenomenal single-seater. The Formula Renault 2-litre Northern European Cup. Cars away then on their formation lap, lots of revs and lots of wheel spin as they get away. It's a big, big grid of cars for this 25-minute race around the Hockenheim circuit, the first of 3 races for the Formula Renault 2-litre Northern European Cup this weekend, rounding out their 2016 season. So Lando Norris then on 265 points, the young UK superstar, with Max Stefani 217, and they're the grid for you. Bartolomei Morecki, there's Max Stefani, Alex Gill sharing row 3. So Max Stefani got to go forward from there. Bruno Baptista and Alex Vartanyan going from row 4. Alexei Kuinev and Dorian Boccolacci, P9 and P10. Then it's Robert Schwartzman, one to keep an eye on, in my opinion. Hugo de Sadala, Julian Falcaro and Gabriel Aubry then are on row 7 with Will Palmer and Yihan Daruvala, with Enrique Chavez and Finlay Hutchinson, Nerze Isakian and Lawrence Hoare. Thanks for your help with the pronunciations here, mate. Philippe Hazebrook and Julia Pankovic. There you go, I got through that, didn't I?
Yeah, you managed pretty well.
Okay, well, you can see the cars now. Heading down into, as they begin to slow up. Air temperature 18.4 degrees, track temperature mere 17.8. It's really fascinating when you look at that particular part of the track, which of course forms part of the drag strip here at Hockenheim. Not too many people realise that there is a drag strip here for drag racing as well. I've never had a blast in that on that. Have you?
No, I've never done any drag races, but I can tell you honestly, it's that drag rubber. Even if it's dry, it's not a problem, but when it's wet, it causes a lot of problems.
Really, you can tell the difference.
Yeah, it's like driving on ice.
Okay. Well, thankfully that shouldn't be too much of an issue for this race as the cars then make the way around the final turn here. And head towards the grid. Their formation lap complete. Final race on the schedule for today.
I think will be interesting start because as we can see the left row,
yes,
which is the second, fourth, sixth position and so on, it's still a little bit damp. So for now the drivers starting P2, P4, P6 and everything, they will struggle to get away a little bit because it's a little bit down and they may lose some traction.
So Fenestraz and all those behind might struggle.
let's see how they manage to get away with a little bit damp track.
We await the marshal there to wave the green flag at the back of the grid. Once all the cars are into their grid positions, which they are now, we get the green flag then, and that means that the race sequence can start. Formula Renault 2-litre Northern European Cup then is go. And it was a good start from the P2 driver. Fenestraz up against Lando Norris, and Fenestraz has got the better of him going into the next sequence of turns here. So they all brake as they go into turn 2. The rest of the cars coming through. One runs off wide, 2, 3, 4. A little bit of contact there, and 2 cars spun around in the wrong direction. And one of those is the Daruvala car.
Was one of the title contenders.
So yes, from P4 in the points, but so as they head into the hairpin, which is another one of the pinch points, we're just waiting to see if and there's more carnage there, and a safety car has been deployed. Well, if there was any doubt about the safety car being deployed, would have been surprised by that, because the cars were out there, weren't they, on turn 2, and there you can see that the car's out. Gabriel Aubry, one of those. Daruvala, another one as well, as they're having a conversation there about who did what, where and when and why it happened, which is, well, can we pick the pieces out of it here?
I will guess Daruvala was too much in the inside, which is still a little bit damp, maybe locked up and couldn't turn around the corner.
Right.
But well, it's hard to judge, honestly.
Well,
maybe we get another. And even have a little bit of contact also in the front. It's a problem when you have a track like this, which is only you have only one place which is dry and the rest is damp.
Well, one thing for sure, that has put paid to Daruvala's chances of the championship, that's for sure. It was an outside chance anyway, because he was P4 in the championship on 203 points, whereas Lando Norris up there on 265, but he's non-finish. Certainly not going to help him at all. Ironically, the Sasha Fenestraz that's leading the race prior to the safety car is down there P6 in the points, so wasn't even in contention for the title. So Lando Norris probably is, using his head a bit here and thinking, well, I'm not going to, on the opening lap, certainly I'm not going to try too hard to get past Fenestraz, because there's nothing to be gained necessarily by it. Whilst I accept, if you're a racing driver, you want to win every race you're in. And that was the situation at the hairpin, which also included Alexei Kornev there for JD Motorsport. So the safety car is taking the cars around. The clock continues to count down there. You can see the order on screen at the bottom there with Lando Norris P2. Now, forgive me for saying so, but I did say Robert Schwartzman is one to watch. He's up to P5, having made great progress. And I do think he is a real young talent. And if I'm honest with you, I'm perhaps a bit surprised that he's not fared even better in the Formula Renault 2-litre Northern European Cup than he has. Be interested to see where he goes next year as he continues his single-seater racing path. So the cars being recovered then, and once the cars are recovered, we will go back to racing, and it will be an even shorter sprint race, that's for sure. So P3 then is the man that's P2 in the championship, Max Deforny. As we see the returning number 27 car there of Alex Gill, who's trying to catch up with the back of the Crocodile, so called as the cars all weave behind the safety car. And where that ever came from, Crocodile. That expression, have you heard that before?
No, honestly, okay. I've never heard it before. But probably because I've been with the helmet.
Yeah, okay, maybe so. Yeah, you've always been racing, haven't you? Yes, so he'll be trying to catch up to the back of the pack. Cars all being led around by the safety car. So Max Deforny will be hoping for good things from P3. Robert Schwartzman then another one to watch from P5 for sure. And there we can see the number 10 car of Hugo de Sadalea, the Tech 1 racing driver. So perhaps thinking that this might be the last lap behind the safety car because the recovery process appeared to be going pretty well. There you can see the car of Daravala. That is not the racing driver, that's a helpful marshal who's steering the car off. So Daravala then for Josef Kaufmann Racing out of the race. Absolutely 0 points then for him, and there you can see the drivers looking pretty unhappy up against the catch fencing, not even completed one racing lap. Must be such a frustrating feeling. And behind the safety car we have a spinner. Now that surely must be ultimately embarrassing for Hazebrook. Felipe having turned the car around whilst behind the safety car. So he will now go right to the very back of the grid, right to the very back of the safety car. We're now beginning to see, oh great, this is all we need, isn't it? Just for the rain to come now. It's been like this a bit all day, hasn't it? Where there have been some heavy showers. And sure enough, we get a red flag. So the cars will be taken back to the start-finish straight, where they will be lined up one by one in the race order.
They should line one by one in the race order, and mechanics will come up, change tires, and then race should be restart.
Okay, well, dramatic if nothing else. So the rain has come just at the wrong time, to be honest.
It doesn't look like it's raining that much.
No, it doesn't.
We are from the community.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't look like before. We had a race and that was a lot more, and all of a sudden, in less than 2 minutes, the track was completely wet.
Okay, all cars to grid boxes. Wet race is the message we get on our timing screen, and there the teams then prepare the wet weather tyres on the trolleys and get ready down there to do a quick fit job on them. Well, there is a very tight schedule here in terms of racing and also time curfew, so the clock is continuing to count down even though we have the red flag situation, as the Fenestrad's car, which is the race leading car ahead of Lando Norris in P2, makes its way back to the grid box. It's interesting the point that we were making there, that the cars will all line up one by one, but it is actually saying, and it's the first time I've seen this actually on the message screen, Alex Terrell, cars to grid boxes.
Yeah, that can be difference between championship, but the rule, as I know, is you should line up from Formula 3. You should not line up one behind the other one, because then come a problem that you don't go, the driver doesn't go right to his boxes, and then you need to change again everything and move cars to the real position.
Right. Okay. So the grid boxes then presumably are grid boxes in race order now.
Yes, of course.
Grid boxes are pretty prevalent at the moment, given that, you know, just last weekend at the Hungaroring Racing Circuit for DTM, Robert Wickens, hugely experienced driver, ended up being put to the back of the grid because he went to the wrong grid box after the formation lap. Now, if a driver as experienced as Robert can make a mistake like that, presumably any driver can make a mistake, and that's the point you're making, isn't it? You know, if you line up in the wrong grid box here. Well, wet race is being displayed by the race official there with the board, and the teams really rushing then to make the changes to the tyres. Now, we're in this situation, and Alex Toril, you're an experienced racing driver. Here am I, but nothing other than a voice. The rain is coming down a bit now, but it has only been showers thus far today. Will any of those drivers have the ability to convince their teams to say, do you know what? The track is going to dry out, let's stay on slicks. I mean, the chances of that happening in the space of 15 minutes is remote, I know, but you know, if you're, you know, P16, 17, 18, would it be worth taking the gamble if the rain is not going to amount to very much?
The problems we have now, Dave, just saw 10 minutes board, so we will have a 5-minute race. And this is a problem with a slightly damp track for 5 laps, for 5 minutes, which is 3 laps. Then
Yes.
you go on wets, and if you destroy the tires, then you just put in new ones for the next race.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't really matter. If we would have a longer race of 30 minutes, maybe then we have to take into account to try another set of tires or go with slicks as the track will dry out. But yeah, now we can see here in the image with the contrast that it's raining quite a lot.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think we will get a 5-minute race.
Okay. Well, certainly the clock is continuing to count down. The teams are working very, very fast there. And is that a bent arm at the back there? You can actually see how bent that is.
Yes,
following
you're
contact. The engineer doing his best there with bare hands to try and straighten it a bit. And it always interests me that when you look at it, it's a great image this is, because the rear of the car, it runs quite significant negative camber, where the wheel, the bottom of the wheel is splayed out a little bit further than the top of the wheel.
Yes, this is a typical race setup. We usually drive some more negative camber, and depends actually different of the cars. Some cars drive a lot more negative camber than the other ones, and also because when the car is in the air, the suspension just it's free, it's going down. So also when the car goes into the floor, the suspension goes up, and then that changes as well the camber. So it's everything has to take into account.
Okay. Interesting. Well, the wet weather tyres have gone on to the Fenestras car straight away. Team doing a great job there, and the car released from the rear jack and now from the front one as well. And the rest of the teams are working hard there, presumably with the sooner that they can do that, the sooner we can go back to racing. Did you say you'd seen a 10-minute board? I didn't see that.
Just as they head to the grid, I could see here from the window they were showing 10 minutes board. That was minute 16. Here's some drivers going out of the car.
Yeah, now that's
maybe it's they checked the suspension and they told him
because of that bent arm. Okay. Fair point there. The spectators then that have enjoyed a rich vein of racing during the course of the day here today at Hockenheim. And then, you're right, the rain is really coming down now, isn't it? Where once it was just showering, now it is properly raining. So, understandably, the wet weather tyres going on. The race director having chosen to stop the race to allow the teams out to change those tyres very sensibly indeed. So the wet weather tyres on the grooved pattern, and what the grooves do is dissipate the water, of course, from the surface of the track. And what you do find, though, during wet weather racing is that once the track does begin to dry out, and this is really interesting because you have to do this, is you then have to, before you perhaps change back to slick tyres or maybe even intermediate, depending on what series that you're racing in, to keep these tyres within their operating range, you have to keep them cool, don't you? So sometimes when the track is really drying out, is that why we see from racing drivers such as yourself really extraordinary lines being taken around the circuit because you're searching out for the water?
Yes, completely. That's completely true. When the wet tire gets too hot, I mean, it's a tire which is used to work on hot conditions, so when you reach to have a nice temperature on the wet tires, it works really, really good.
Yes.
But when it goes over this peak of temperature, then it starts to drop and you start to have some degradation. That's why with the driver, when it starts to dry out the track, we need to look for the wet patches to cool this, to take this temperature out of the tire.
Right. And, you know, other racing drivers that I've spoken to, and we've seen it in other categories that have been racing today, that if you're on the track on a slick tyre instead of a wet weather tyre, you know, it is like driving on eggshells, isn't it? You know, it's you know, as a road driver myself, Alex, it's ice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like if you are with a completely slick tyre in a even damp or wet track, the car is impossible to drive. You will need to drive maybe 30k an hour, so you can really stay on the track, because it's like you said, it's like driving on ice. You have no grip at all.
Well, the teams have done a good job there, and most of the cars now fitted with the wet weather tyres as the rain continues to fall here at Hockenheim, and the clock continues to tick down. It was a 25-minute duration race, and as you can see from the clock at the top of your screen, we're already into just 10.5 minutes remaining, and we've not started to race yet. The cars will once we do start racing once again, of course, it'll be behind the safety car initially. And when the safety car restart in a wet race, 3 minutes?
3 minutes more right now.
When is safety car restart? Wet race. Race steward can decide whether to leave the safety car out for 1 lap or 2 laps, I'm given to understand.
Completely, it's completely true as well. So yeah, depending on how wet is the track, the race director can sometimes says, okay, we do 2 laps behind the safety car, so the drivers have the chance to recognize well the track situation and adapt themselves better to the new tarmac situation.
Right. And when, like today, where we've had conditions where it has rained, presumably the amount of rubber that's gone down from other racing categories is less than if it had been completely dry and this was the first rain that we'd seen.
Yes, of course. Now we've seen the track is not really rubber down; it's pretty much clean.
Mm-hmm.
And this also sometimes not so bad because the driver in the wet plays always not a good role because actually a car on a clean tarmac in the wet, it has more grip than on a tarmac with rubber. The rubber is kind of, let's say, a little bit of soap, which makes the track a little bit even more. A little bit more, yes, make this car slide a little bit more.
We're looking at the Lando Norris car then. So last weekend at Spa, which of course is renowned for its weather conditions, Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Not so far away from here at Hockenheim in Belgium. That's where he sealed the Formula Renault 2-litre Euro Cup Championship last weekend. He's in a very strong position to seal the Formula Renault 2-litre Northern European Cup this weekend. Going into this race, 285 points to 217. That was a real whale tail, wasn't it, from the Fenestraz car then as he lit the back up and drove that beautifully on opposite lock. Which I have to say is always very, very pleasing, but is often not the quickest way to drive a racing car because, of course, that was just from the off, and you can just see the marbles that have been chucked up off the racing line there from previous racing today. So restart behind the safety car. Whether the safety car stays out for 1 or 2 laps will be determined when the lights go out on top of the safety car. So really is bucketing down now, isn't it?
Yeah. No, now it's really heavy rain hitting the track, and yeah, we'll have a nice 7 minutes race.
It's not going to be many racing laps, is there?
No, I guess maybe 4 or 5, and with these conditions we've already seen that can be that we do 1 lap and then again a safety car.
Yes.
Because of a crash. Also the point is with this kind of spray, as soon as you are, it doesn't matter if you are P3 or P5 or P11, you don't see anything. It's like driving completely blind. And
this is something that, as a race fan, I perhaps don't appreciate enough, and that is, unless you're the lead car, unless you're Fenestraz, who of course is going to be unaffected by spray because he's got no cars ahead of him. As you say, if you're P2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you've got all that accumulated spray being chucked into your visor. And, do you find yourself having to almost come out of the slipstream of the car ahead just so that you can see where you're going? Yeah, it's a really scary and difficult situation for the drivers because they sometimes need to guess where they are. Yeah. You just need to look where is the white line, either the right-hand side or the left-hand side, and guess where you are. And when you are coming into a corner in the GT racing, it's a little bit easier because when the car brakes, it's like a normal road car. You see the red light going on, and, yes, and you see someone is braking in front of me. But single-seater, sometimes you only have this flashing red light, but that doesn't mean you are actually braking. It's just a warning. That's just a rain light.
This is a rain line. It's just a flashing red light that says there is a car in there.
Well, the lights are off atop the safety car, so we're going to go for it. At the end of this lap with the safety car, we're on 6 minutes now. We're not going to get many racing laps. There's confirmation on screen for you. Safety car comes in this lap as this Formula Renault 2-litre Northern European Cup race will resume. Fenestraz is leading from Lando Norris, who is P2. The championship chaser, Max de Ferny, is P3. And by the time they get to the timing line, it's going to be about 5 minutes of racing time left. So Fenestraz will give it a footful, and it's going to be down to Lando Norris and Max de Ferny to almost anticipate when he's going to go for it, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess it will go relaunch the race now. Now it does. Now it's full throttle, but we need to remember a car can't overtake till crossing the actual start-finish line. So now they can start overtaking themselves.
Already a big battle going on for P4 and P5 with Robert Schwartzman in that mix. And Robert Schwartzman, very, very feisty young racer, trying to make his way up the order. So there you can see exactly what I was saying as Lando Norris dives out of the wheel tracks of Fenestraz ahead, just so that he can try and see where he's going. And Lando Norris then right alongside Fenestraz then, but Fenestraz had got more momentum. It's the start of the Parabolica, and they're going to head up to the pinch point now, which is the hairpin here at Hockenheim. And just look at the spray that's being chucked up by those cars. So Max Deforny then in P3 is closer to Lando Norris than Norris is to Fenestraz, who is leading the race. So he closes in a bit more, takes a very tight line through there, but I think Lando Norris has got enough momentum to maintain that P2 position. And of course, what he'll be thinking about as we get a car turned around there, that's the number 77 car, and I think that's Lawrence Hoare, who has gone around. Indeed so, lovely livery on that car, and now on the grass before rejoining, and just add some grass to the already fairly slippery track surface as well. But does manage to return and was just pushed into that little pirouette, if you like. So there is P1, P2, and then P3. Here we can see it again. Just a bit of contact there, wasn't there? And, you know, in these conditions, there's not going to be much resistance to the car actually spinning around, is there?
No, it's really easy to, as soon as you get a little bit tap from behind, you just turn around and it's not much you can do.
One of the end plates has broken on the front wing of the car, but now this is a different incident where
it's the same car. But
it's the same car, but it's a different place, isn't it? And it's now beached in the gravel there. And
I guess maybe turning into the corner without the end plate. Those cars without aero are, again, like if you were driving in ice, so maybe with a broken end plate, just missed the apex and ran wide and went into the gravel.
Hutchison with problems as well. He's rejoining now, and well, yeah, completely look. That's the Hutchison car, rather than the number 77 car that we saw of Lawrence Hoare, which is once again we saw beached into the gravel with no getting out of that. 2.5 minutes remaining on the clock for this Formula Renault 2-litre Northern European Cup race, where the 1, 2, 3 remain as they were, but Schwartzman is up to P4, having got past the car of Marecki. So Schwartzman, as they're going nearly 4 abreast into the hairpin, this could all end in tears, but remarkably they all go through, and it was the one right at the back of the pack who took advantage of that and got almost 2-3 places at the same time. Yeah,
use the outside, stop the car, rotate it, and then you went the earliest on the power, and he managed to pass all 4 cars. It's a nice movement.
So up the inside there goes the...
we're getting again a red flag. No, race is over.
No restart, that's it, the race is done. Well, that's a real shame, because weather conditions and clearly track conditions are such that they've decided that, you know, let's quit while we're ahead. So it's going to be Fenestraz, Norris, Deforny that we see on the podium. No restart, red flag. And I feel a little bit sorry, if I may, for Robert Schwartzman, who was making good progress, and I think perhaps even with the little time we'd got, might have been able to challenge Deforny for the final podium place. But another 2 races to come tomorrow, and hopefully he'll get his chance to show his prowess then. So the number 14 car that we saw there of Will Palmer, the British driver, and the cars all into the pit lane then.
They need to drive to their respective boxes, maybe till the end of the pit lane, and then they will have to.
How frustrating would it be, Alex Toril, as a racing driver, to have gone out there and done nothing more than a couple of parade laps, really?
Yeah, it's It's always really frustrating and really, except if you are P1.
Of course.
If you are P1, you just want everything to end up as soon as possible, so you get your win and you go happy home. So no, but it's always really, and also for the spectators to see only a 4 laps race is not what they deserve. But it's racing and also safety. It's over everything. So. It's really important. So if the race director says it's not safe to keep driving, then he has always the responsibility of all the drivers, and if every kind of the decision he takes towards this is always the right one.
Sasha Fenestraz takes the win from Lando Norris, Max Deforny P3, then it's Marecki P4, Robert Schwartzman P5, Vartanyan then takes P6 with Falcaro P7 and James Allen then in P8. It's an awful position that the race director is in, because you're absolutely right. There's the rest of the order, Bruno Baptista and Enrique Chavez rounding out the top 10, with Dorian Boccolacci just outside the top 10, P11. Because the race director has got to make that decision based on the judgment that he has, based on all the information that is available to him. The weather conditions are not improving, the cars are skidding all over the place, and we all love, the reason we do this job is because we love motor racing. We love to see guys like you out there racing, but what we don't want to see is any of you in more danger than is preventable. Clearly it would be frustrating particularly if you're somebody like Robert Schwartzman, or indeed the number 96 car of Marecki, but you know what? It's going to be Fenestraz, Norris and Deforny we see on the podium. Here come just a few highlights to music, and it will only be a few. So a short edit then of just a few highlights that we can bring you from the Formula Renault 2-litre Northern European Cup Race 1, which was really rather shortened by dint of the weather and the race director deciding that actually he was going to cut the race short due to various incidents. Going to be no restart of the race, so the top 3 will be heading to the podium in due course. So, weather conditions are playing their part. The irony is, looking from our commentary booth window, it looks like it's, well, maybe it hasn't stopped raining, but it's certainly eased in comparison to what we had, which caused all the cars to be brought back to the grid boxes and have the slick weather tyres replaced by wet weather tyres. But nonetheless, that's what has happened. So we're standing by for the podium as it is. And we have 2 Formula Renault 2-litre Northern European races to come tomorrow, which over the full 25-minute race duration hopefully will be a little busier than the race that we have seen today.
I'm actually not sure, Dave, but I think there is some kind of rule that you need to have at least 50% of the race to get a podium or something.
Well, I was then going to ask that question because, you know, in some championships, it gets reduced to half points depending upon the duration of the race.
Yes, that's right.
And whilst I've never heard what you've said with regards to that you can't have a podium, you're quite right to point out from our commentary position, absolutely not one person on the podium at all preparing it. So perhaps we are not going to have a podium. And perhaps actually no points will be awarded for that race because we did so few laps. Maybe you're right. I'm not sure. It depends a little bit on every championship regulations. But they all have different ones, don't they?
Yeah, but there is some kind of rule that you need to have a minimum amount of laps to set a race as a valid result for championship points. And therefore a podium.
And I'm beginning to wonder whether perhaps they will choose to rerun that race in the schedule tomorrow, but it will be really difficult to do it because it's such a tight schedule. But I don't know the answer. We do not sit in the race control room, so we do not know the answer to that question. All we do know is that we have had a race where on track at least, and it was only on track, it was Fenestraz that I was going to say take the checkered flag. Well, of course he didn't because the race was stopped.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. Okay, well, obviously we'll find out more information, and we'll bring that information to you when we can, when it comes back to the Formula Renault 2-litre Northern European Cup races tomorrow. But for now, the race was halted, the race was stopped, and yes, that's the way it is. And you're looking at the very damp Hockenheim track at the moment. So, situation there. Interestingly, there is another race still to come, which is the Tourenwagen Trophy Race 1. And looks like the track is being prepared for it. So, and again, this goes back to what I was saying, Alex, about it being such a tight schedule. That there's no sort of wiggle room in the schedule you know, that may have played into the race steward's mind as well with regards to when he chose to red flag the race, because ultimately there's only so much time available to him. There are noise curfews here as well, so you know, perhaps that played a part in terms of the decision that he made. I'm not sure, but we'll find out more, and as soon as we know, then we will bring that to you when it comes to the two Formula Renault 2-litre races that we should have tomorrow. Well, I'm sure we will have tomorrow. Whether it's a question of whether it will be 2 races or 3 races, I think that's the only question. But I think you're absolutely right, Alex Toril. We ain't going to get a podium because with only just a few laps completed, as far as they're concerned, the race hasn't been run, which will make it even more pivotal when it comes to the championship tomorrow, of course.
Of course, you're absolutely right. Maybe they can reschedule a race being in the morning, really early in the morning. That's happened sometimes. But like you said, the schedule is so tight that it's really hard to really put a race in between, an unscheduled race in between.
Yes, you're absolutely right. That's going to be really difficult to do. So there you can see the pit lane. Well, there we have it. We don't think we're going to have a podium. So please join us tomorrow for Formula Renault 2-litre Northern European, when we will be back on track. We should have at least 2 races, we think. Maybe it'll be 3. Who knows? From me, thank you very much. Alex Toril, been a privilege and a pleasure to have you alongside us in comms, and look forward to hearing your voice once again very soon.
Thank you very much, Dave. You're welcome. And it will be always pleasure to come back and join you and comment for the people some nice motorsport.
Well, we like seeing you out there winning races, but having you here is a bonus as well. So from us, that's it for now. Bye-bye.